Okay, today we're going to be looking at calculators and making sure that your calculator is using the right units when it's calculating with angles. This is really important when you start to come to use some of the trigonometric functions. This is a non-scientific calculator. It doesn't have trigonometric functions, so for that calculator this is irrelevant. So I'm going to move that one out of the way for now.
Okay.
So we have two calculators here, scientific calculators that have got the various trigonometric functions on them. You're probably familiar with angles measured in degrees, but there are other measurements possible as well. There are radians and gradians. Gradians are hardly ever used in this country, although they are used on the continent, especially in France.
Okay.
The three units are related by a relationship like this. 180 degrees is the same as pi radians, which equals 200 grads or gradians.
Okay.
Whenever you're calculating with your trigonometric functions, you need to be clear which units you're working in and set your calculator accordingly. Calculators work differently.
Okay.
So you need to get to know your own calculator. Don't throw away the instruction booklet for your calculator. It is a good memory aid when you come to do this sort of thing. Let's look at this calculator first. We can tell what modes it's in by the little bit at the top of the screen, which depending on the mode it'll either read degrees, rad or grad. And we can change it by changing this key here, which is like this one. By pressing once we get a display of rad, pressing again gives grad, pressing back again gives us degrees.
Okay.
This calculator uses a symbol like this at the top. D for degrees, R for radian, G for gradians. I find that quite difficult to see, and it has a different way of changing the mode. This time you have to go into your mode button, which on this calculator is here. If we press it once we get one set of units to change. Here, by pressing it twice, we get to choose which mode we want to be in.
Okay.
If I press 1, that little symbol is degrees. If I want to change it to something else, I have to do the same procedure again, mode, and press 2 to get grads, radians. Press it again, do it twice, and you get gradients. As I say, that one is quite difficult to see. It is important to set your calculator in the mode that you want for your particular calculations. At GCSE you will probably want to use degrees. Beyond that it's more likely you will use radians.
Okay.
We also have a system on both calculators that you can convert one unit to another, but again they use different systems. You'll be looking in each case for a key like this. On this calculator it's a second function key above the pi key there, and on this one it's a second function key again but over the answer key. And they do work differently. With this one, if you've set your calculator to degrees, you have to put in an angle in degrees and it'll then convert it to other things. So let's put in 180, and then if we do our shift to there, it'll convert it to radians. Be careful when you're doing all of this, because although radians are measured in multiples of pi, the calculator will give it you in the decimal equivalent. You may recognise pi, but you may not recognise pi by 4 or other parts or multiples of pi. But it is correct. If you then do this one again, you get to 200 gradians.
Okay.
So working out your own calculator, it's useful to use a system like this. This one uses it differently. I'm just going to check and get this back into degrees for the demonstration. Because this one is in degrees, what you're wanting to work in degrees, if you enter an angle in degrees, you can't, well, you can convert it, but it expects you to be putting angles in other units and then being able to convert them to degrees. So in here, if we put in pi, and I've lost my pi key on this one. Oh, it's down here, yes. If I put in pi, then I've got to go to our thing like this. I then have to tell it what units I'm using. So I'm telling it that I've put it in as radians, and then it'll tell me how many degrees.
Okay.
So you can see that they work very differently, but using a system like this where you know the conversions means that you can work out for your own calculator how it works. I prefer not to be using all the conversion functions and just set my calculator to the mode that I want to work in.
Okay.
That's all for now.